Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a very special interview with Scotty J to discuss one of the most debated topics in WoW history. Mists of Pandaria. Is it the best expansion ever, or is it one you should skip? Before we jump in though, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and drop your initial thoughts in the comments. What is your verdict on MoP? So first up, we've got MoP's new zones, leveling, the Jade Forest, the Valley of Four Winds, Kunlai Summit. They're some of the most stunning areas really we've ever seen. The question though is leveling in MoP just about those pretty visuals, or is there more substance to it? Scotty, what is your take? Is the journey from 85 to 90 just a scenic tour, or does it offer some real progression?
If you just want to enjoy the journey and not think too much about what life's like at 90 and onwards, honestly, it's very basic. It'd be hard to get people excited about running around questing because I don't think that whole leveling journey is something that people are particularly bothered about if they're playing this version of Classic. But yeah, the zones are great and some of the quests are quite unique. Most people are going to take the path of least resistance. What is the fastest way to get to level 90 and what's going to benefit you the most when you get to 90? So that would be, how can you maximize the amount of rep that you're going to get before you're level 90? So like what quest hubs do you actually want to hit in each zone? Because otherwise when you get to 90, you're only going to have to go back and do them anyway.
Alright, that does make me at least a little bit more optimistic about leveling, provided everyone doesn't just spend their entire time in dungeons. And to our viewers, which zone in MoP do you think is the most memorable? Let's get a poll going down in the comments. Next, we're diving into the talent system. And this one's controversial. You only pick one talent every 15 levels, and that's something that really a lot of people don't like. For someone like me especially, who really likes that classic style, you're constantly getting progression. You're constantly being able to choose between what you want to get. It can feel a bit cookie cutter as well. Scotty, if you could sell me on this new talent system, what makes it better than it at least looks and feels on paper?
It's one of those where it feels bad when you're leveling because 15 levels, let's say up to about level 60, none of them are particularly impactful while you're leveling. But at the same time, all of those choices that you would make at the moment with the current talent system are just baked into the class. So around the time that you would pick that talent right now in Cataclysm, will be around the time that you just get that as a passive in your spellbook anyway. The big key talents in Cataclysm will then just be coming from a different source. Ultimately, you'll still be getting them around the same time anyway. It's more psychological, you know, you're looking and you're like, oh, you know, every 15 levels I get to pick something and it might be something like a stun where you don't really care because you're leveling. But then at level 90, that's when they're really online, which is to me what matters. The talents are far from cookie cutter. You will change your talents on a boss-by-boss basis, which makes them more interesting. You're thinking about every fight. Is there more AoE? I'm going to take more AoE talents. Do I need more healing? Do I need to bring some raid healing and some cooldowns? Even sort of CC talents, which ones are best for each fight? So you're constantly thinking about how you can do more damage, how you can do more healing.
Yeah, I can see at least why they did it. They wanted to add more flexibility, creativity to the endgame. And it does come, of course, at the cost of leveling, which some people are not going to like. And to viewers, what do you guys prefer? Do you prefer a steady power curve, or do you like the big giant leaps that we'll be getting in MoP? Let us know your take in the comments. We've also got to talk pandas, and Mists of Pandaria, it brings the Pandaren. And I've got to be honest, when I was a kid, it kind of felt like an April Fool's joke. The lore, yes, it's cool, the starting area is fantastic, but come on, the animations, the look of the pandas, it's a kind of a major letdown. So Scotty, sell me on pandas. Why should we think they're cool in Mists of Pandaria?
I mean, it's very personal, isn't it? You know, on what race you actually like, what you don't like. Me personally, I kind of like pandas. You know, one of my main monks in MoP Classic will be a female Pandaren. It's the same as any class, isn't it? Like, you know, there'll be people that are anti-gnome. They won't play a gnome, you know, because of the aesthetic. You know, they look ridiculous to some people. And pandas are the same, but I'm with you. I mean, before Mists of Pandaria, there was Pandarans, you know, there was monks, there was at least hints and things that alluded to them. So it was kind of, yeah, maybe received as a joke by some people, but people who knew the lore probably saw it coming. But I can't sell it to you because really, I always look at PvE perspective. You know, I'll pick the race based on what I'm going to get the biggest benefit of in raids and what I also kind of can stand to look at. And I think like female Pandaren, you're going to get double food buff, which is obviously huge. I'm kind of with you. Some people will look at it and be like, I'm not playing playing that furry class, and then he'll go and be a druid main instead.
We'll kind of agree to disagree on that one. I do appreciate the outlook all the same. But to our viewers, do you love or hate Pandaren? If you're a fan, type Panda Power, and if you're not a fan of pandas, type no thanks in the comments. Moving into monks, and MoP isn't just about having a new race, it's also about monks, and they can fill tank, heal, or DPS roles. But some people also argue maybe they're not really necessary. Why should you play a monk in Mists of Pandaria?
You are talking to either the best or worst person for this, because, I mean, in MoP Classic, I will main 2 or 3, bare minimum. 2 or 3 characters will be monk. Like, any version of WoW, Mists of Pandaria onwards, I'll be a monk. That's why you're going to get a very biased opinion. I think Windwalker is amazing, like one of the most fun, engaging PvE specs. Brewmaster, amazing tanks. Again, just fun to play. And Mistweaver is like a very unique healing style. In terms of you're questioning, like, do they need to exist? And people would say, like, do they need to be there? I would just throw back to you and say, well, did Death Knights need to exist? Do Demon Hunters in the future need to come into the game? I mean, no. The game would be absolutely fine with just the base vanilla classes. But that's only going to take you so far and hold people's attention for so long. I think the Monk is an amazing addition. I genuinely think if people give it a chance, it's one of the most fun classes you can play. But it's not overpowered.
All right, well, I always did enjoy the Windwalker rotation, at least in retail, so I'm willing to give it a shot in MoP. And to our viewers, let me know, are you a die-hard monk fan, or do you prefer sticking with the classics? Drop your thoughts in the chat. All right, so we've got to talk about pet battles as well. Controversial minigame that MoP is introducing. Personally, I've always thought the idea was really good, and there was so much potential with pet battles. Do you think that this is going to be a core pillar of the expansion, or is it just going to end up being an afterthought like it is in the later expansions?
I love pet battles. It's one of my go-to ways to even level my characters, as in level up from 1 to 90. Is, you know, I'll do the pet battle trainers along the way. If I'm in a zone where, you know, the quests are a bit rubbish, or, you know, I just don't like that level bracket, I'll subsidize a couple of levels worth by doing pet battles, because I actually really enjoy it. But I like the collection aspect as well. But yeah, like, in general, pet battles are amazing. But whether they're for you or not, it's personal preference. The one thing I will say is it's an amazing way to get lesser charms of good fortune. And you just want, so lesser charms of good fortune, you hand those in to get 3 greater charms, and then they're what you use for bonus rolls. So in raids, you can get an extra chance at loot, and you can get that 3 times a week. Now, just going around and doing pet battles while you're watching Netflix is honestly the most brain-dead way of getting those charms every week. A pillar of the content, or, you know, will it be a requirement? Will everyone be doing it? No.
All right, well, I already like the idea of pet battles, so I'm already pretty much sold, so we didn't have to do much there. If you guys are pet battle fanatics, though, comment your favorite pet below and share your best pet battle moment. So moving into the endgame, and not talking raids yet, a lot of people really like the endgame dungeons as well, like the Temple of the Jade Serpent, the immersive heroics, the epic lore as well. So how do you feel like the endgame dungeons themselves, not the raids, how do you feel like the dungeons hold up? And are they as good as everybody remembers them being?
Yeah, I really like the dungeons. So they go back to a more Wrath of the Lich King style, where they are quite quick, quite easy, very linear. Here's a few trash packs and then a boss, a few trash packs and then a boss. You know, they're a bit quicker, a bit more face roll. But obviously the reason for that is that then you've got challenge modes, which is a step up. Everyone's doing it in the same item level, and yeah, you've got to beat a timer. I have got complaints when it comes to the heroics, I'll be honest. I like the fast pace, just smash through them and get loot at the end of it. But they do get quite old quite quick because of that, because there's no complexity, there's no challenge. But probably my biggest negative criticism of Mr. Pandaria, actually, is the lack of, yeah, they added great raids throughout the expansion, but just like an extra couple of dungeons at some point during it would have been nice as well.
I know I'm definitely looking forward to a little bit of a break. The more easygoing dungeons of MoP are going to be very welcome. And if you've ever tackled these dungeons, share your epic moments, even your worst experiences. Maybe you had a nightmare 4-hour dungeon recently. Share them in the comments below. And so MoP also brings scenarios. Up to 3 players. They're meant for fun, relaxing, more of a less intense way to gear up. So do they end up living up to the hype?
They're all right. They are what they are. They're not the most efficient way of gearing. And they're not the the most challenging of content to begin with either. I say to begin with because obviously later on, or much later on, we get heroic scenarios. The regular scenarios, obviously, they're more for storytelling, like a 3-player small quest chain. You'll load in and it will say, right, go and do these couple of things, and then you go in together and you're doing a couple of things, and then it'll unlock the next stage, which might be to kill a mini boss. You do that, and it's something else, but it's kind of telling a story. I think you'll do them a couple of times, and then you'll be like, all right, cool, I've seen those, I'll wait for the heroic ones to come out.
All right, I see that as well myself. Being able to get any gear progression from easier content, though, is definitely a huge plus for me. For you guys out there, what is your best or worst scenario experience of all time? Sound off in the comments below. All right, so we're moving into raids, and getting out of the way first, Raid Finder's always been a double-edged sword. It's super accessible, but in some ways it kind of kills the thrill of raiding. And I've got to ask first your take on what do you think about the Raid Finder in MoP?
I think Mr. Pandaria needs it. I don't think it's even debatable. It has to be in the game. But I would have had it in cat. I would have much preferred to have seen Raid Finder added now. The reason I think it needs to be in Mr. Pandaria is so there's an easy way for people to be able to keep their ults up to date, or more casual people keep up to date with the legendary quest line. So for the legendary quest line, you have to do the raids to be able to actually progress through it. And if you're someone that wants to play MoP because they love pet battles, they love doing the dailies, getting the reputations, doing 5-man heroics, unless you raid, you are going to be at the biggest disadvantage you can possibly imagine. Because when it comes to the point where everyone's got their cloaks, good luck getting in groups for anything. Because you won't. Like, it will be whisper cloak for invite. I'm not even joking. The cloak is that huge. It's that massive. Enabling everybody to be able to keep up with a legendary quest line is really important. And the way you do that is Raid Finder. It's as simple as that.
I've got to say, that is at least one strong argument for Raid Finder, despite the many problems it has. The idea that players would be completely behind if they don't get their legendary cloaks, and that would just be a snowball effect. As for you guys, I know that Raid Finder is going to be very hotly contested. What are your thoughts about it? Let me know. So actually talking about the raids themselves, this is definitely, from what I've seen, a very high point. The Siege of Orgrimmar, Throne of Thunder. Raids that are still talked about as kind of the gold standard of raiding. So Scotty, what do you think about the overall raid experience in MoP?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, it's a shame it took all the way until Siege of Orgrimmar, which is the final raid. It's a shame that it took all that time before they implemented flex raiding. That's something I would love to see in from the start. But raiding in general, like the first tier of raiding, I'm the complete opposite. As in with Cataclysm, I've always said the first tier of raids in Cataclysm were the best. Blackwing Descent, Bastion of Twilight, not necessarily Throne, but those two in particular were amazing. Like to me, better than Firelands and Dragon Soul. Whereas MoP really builds up in the raids. Like Moggish and Volk's, Heart of Fear and Terrorist are the first 3 raids. That's tier 14. And they're good. I really enjoy them. Really good raids, some unique bosses, but it only gets better. Like Throne of Thunder is probably the best one for me personally. I think Throne of Thunder was perfection in terms of raiding, and then Siege of Orgrimmar is absolutely amazing as well. But it's kind of like you get through the first tier and you know every raid's just going to get better from there on out.
Well, if there was one part of MoP that I was really excited for, it was going to be the raids, and I'm definitely sold on the idea of having flex raiding earlier on. And viewers, I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think MoP has the best raids in WoW of all time? Let's get your list in the comments. So something I'm looking a little bit less forward to is the reputation grinds. Endless dailies for gear, for recipes even. So Scotty, what is your take on the rep grinds? Are they a necessary evil, or is there something that could be changed, for example, in these systems?
First of all, they're not a necessity. There'll be certain people that are bothered about making gold and whatever that will want to get to honored or will want to get to revered with certain reputations to get like enchanting recipes or whatever. But if we're talking about just somebody that wants to play the game, they want to raid, they want to do dungeons, they want to do challenge modes, you're gonna lose pretty much no competitive edge whatsoever from never ever doing a daily. Because even like the items that you get, like you can get a neck, you can get a ring. They're 489 eye level. You're literally going to replace them your first raid potentially. So yes, in terms of pre-raid gear, and if you want to have the best gear possible, then farming out reputations is something that you're going to do, but you don't need to. There's literally, you're going to get better in the raid.
All right, hearing that the rep grinds are not completely required at all is very good for me. And viewers, I would love to hear about your thoughts about what Scotty said. The idea of you could go into the raid with these absolute pre-biss, or maybe you don't bother at all. Do you think it's something that you're going to do, pushing these rep grinds just to go into the raid with your best foot forward? MoP has really shaken some stuff up with major class changes. The Feral, the Guardian Druid specs, reworking Warlocks with the new resources, Hunters losing their minimum range. I've got to ask, what are your favorite class changes in MoP? And how do some of the classes, like the biggest ones, compare to Cataclysm?
Favorite changes, I would probably say Shaman. So firstly, yeah, Elemental. I like how Elemental still feels familiar, but it gets some things that it was lacking, like personal cooldowns. You know, so it gets Shamanistic Rage, the same as Enhancement's got. It's got a lot more sort of raid utility that it brings. Like the bigger changes, I mean, Resto Druid feels fantastic. Like, I'd say probably my favorite healer to play in MoP is a Resto Druid. It feels really, really overpowered, but like in a good way. Paladin. I love our rep Paladin changed from feeling quite slow and sluggish to everything you press gives you holy power. So you feel like you're flowing through your rotation a lot quicker. We'll go Warrior, would be kind of my other big one. The removal of having to stance, the addition of banners. Like banners are, that they're so broken that they're going to be stacked.
Honestly, probably the Warrior is like the most exciting for me. Just the idea of the banners, which seem really cool, and the idea that if every raid buff is covered, then you're going to just bring more Warriors. That seems like a really appealing thing to me. And all of you guys, what class change do you think has had the biggest impact on your playstyle? Let's hear it in the comments. Just talking PvP. The MoP arenas, the RBGs, they're remembered really fondly. The PvP players, they always talk about MoP. But there are also concerns about things like the dampening taking so long to kick in. And I'd like to know, what do you think about MoP? Do you think it is kind of the golden age of PvP?
Look, I'll be completely honest. PvP has not been my scene for years. Like, I used to PvP a lot, you know, from original sort of vanilla all the way through to probably MoP and beyond, to be fair. But in Classic, it's always been something that I say I'm going to do, and then I just don't. But in MoP, I will. Because, like, mainly because of Monk. Like, I can't wait for Windwalker PvP. Like, it's gonna be awesome. Everybody tells me that MoP is the best expansion for PvP. Like, you know, the most balanced, the most fun, most challenging. I haven't done enough of it to really give much of a comment outside of stating the facts.
Well, I'm looking forward myself to getting back into Classic PvP. MoP looks just too fun to pass up. For our PvP warriors watching though, what is your verdict on MoP PvP? Drop a comment with your best or your worst MoP PvP memory. That was an incredible deep dive into Mists of Pandaria Classic. A huge thank you to Scotty J sharing his excellent expert insights. Now it's over to you. What do you think? Is MoP a must-play expansion, or is it one to skip? Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you never miss a single one of my epic WoW videos. And remember, share this video with your friends, drop your thoughts in the comments, and join us on social media for even more debate and discussion. Until next time, keep adventuring.